Christine Henseling. I'm a researcher at the IZT, Institute for Future Studies and Technology Assessment, and I have the pleasure to share with you some of our insights from the research project Circular City Berlin, Steps from Potential to Implementation. In the project, we examined the Berlin circular fashion ecosystem. Next, please. First, I would like to explain how we proceeded. The aim was to investigate actors and projects that contribute to a circular textile economy and textile use in Berlin. To this end, we researched and examined the various initiatives, startups, and companies in this field. Then we analyzed their perspectives and development approaches. We described the framework conditions that promote or hinder circular practices, and we finally identified 3 central fields of action. Next, please. I don't want to go into too much detail about the ecological problems involved in textile production and use. At this point, I'd just like to point out that in most cases, textile production is a linear production process. At present, only about 1% of used textiles are recycled in such a way that new clothing is created from them. A key challenge is therefore to keep textile products and raw materials in the cycle for as long as possible. With our project, we want to show which approaches, projects, and business models already exist in this field. Next, please. In our work, we distinguish between 4 different circular strategies. The first one is life cycle designing. By life cycle designing, we mean the development of innovative product design that makes fashion multifunctional, modular, easy to repair, and recyclable. The second strategy is the extension of the lifetime of products. That means longer use of existing products, for example, with practices like reuse, repair, refurbishing, and re-commerce. The third strategy is intensification of use, and by this we mean forms of consumption in which fashion is used by more than one person, for example, sharing or renting. And the last one is reuse of materials. In this field, we look at different practices that aim at the reuse of waste materials for the production of new products. This includes recycling, upcycling, and also new ways of collecting and handing on discarded textiles. Next chart, please. In Berlin, there are several actors involved in the life cycle designing of textiles, for example, the Weißensee Kunsthochschule, various research institutes, startups, and fashion designers. For example, there are projects and startups like DTEX and Circular Fashion, which aim to recover fibers from used textiles and use them for the production of new textiles. Or another example is the Weißensee Kunsthochschule with its design projects that aim at continuous material flows. Next, please. The actors in the field of reuse in Berlin include second-hand shops, flea markets, clothes swapping events, charity stores, and online platforms. Our research shows that there are more than 140 shops and organizations in this field. Furthermore, there is a number of platforms in Germany that offer re-commerce fashion, for example, Momox, About You, Rebel, or Zalando. Next, please. In the context of intensification of use, especially the new apps and online platforms for renting fashion to consumers are relevant. In Berlin, there are, for example, the startups Pool and Rent. And in the B2B sector, we have the established textile service companies that offer rental clothing for commercial customers. Next, please. Next, we looked at the field reuse of materials and the large upcycling scene in Berlin. During our research, we found more than 25 upcycling stores, studios, and labels that produce fashion and accessories. We also investigated the retro logistics sector. In Berlin, the collection of discarded clothing and textiles is mainly done by commercial and charity companies and by the Berliner Stadtreinigung, BSR. And in addition to these actors, there are initiatives that try out new and experimental ways of dealing with discarded clothing and textiles, such as Textilhafen, Kunststoffe, and also Materialmafia. Next, please. All these business models, companies, initiatives, and projects are, of course, embedded in a landscape of influencing factors and framework conditions. These include networks and supporting initiatives, private and commercial demand, public and corporate procurement, research and development, economic instruments, and, of course, political and legal framework. Next, please. So what is the conclusion from our study? The mapping of initiatives for circular textiles shows that a diverse innovation landscape has emerged in Berlin. There are numerous startups in the areas of sharing, second-hand platforms, re-commerce, and upcycling, as well as sustainable and circular fashion labels. So far, however, these options have not yet reached the mainstream of consumers. So to promote the innovative approaches for circular textiles, further measures are necessary. Next, please. A central field of action is the mobilization of consumers in order to increase the demand for new circular products and services. It's very important that consumers change their consumption and usage behavior. Another strategic field is the recording of material flows in the city, because at the moment we don't know exactly how large the amount of used textiles is and what is done with these used textiles. So we need more information on the material flows of textile waste, of second-hand clothing, production waste, returns, overproduction, and etc. And we need to focus on public and corporate procurement, as procurement can make a major contribution and increase the demand for circular business models and for recycled products. Next, please. The question of how to further promote the many good approaches and business models is also subject of today's Fashion Summit. In this respect, I wish us all a creative and constructive discussion, and thank you very much for your attention.